Good morning, church family. This is Brian and Chris McPike today, and we get to read the morning scripture. Chris?
We're in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, beginning with verse 1. I said in my heart, "Come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself." But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, "It is mad," and of pleasure, "What use is it?" I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees.
I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born into my house. I had also great possession of herds and flocks, more than anyone who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasures of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the light of the sons of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all of my toil. This was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I had expended in doing it. And behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun.
Thank you.
There were walls between us. By the cross you came and broke them down. You broke them down. There were chains around us. By your grace we are no longer bound. No longer bound. You called me out of the grave. You called me into the light. You called my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Feel the darkness shaking. All the dead are coming back to life. I'm back to life. Hear the song awaken. All creation singing, we're alive. 'Cause you're alive. You called me out of the grave. You called me into the light. You called my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. He's coming on the clouds. Kings and kingdoms will bow down. And every chain will break. His broken hearts declare his praise. But who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. So open up the gates, make way before the King of Kings. Our God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. But who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Yeah, who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him.
Well, good morning. My name is Danny Lamont. I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and I'm excited that you're joining us here this morning. It is a special day for you dads out there. Happy Father's Day to you. I've got 4 kiddos of my own, which is where this comes from. And so in all seriousness, it's one of the absolute greatest joys of my life to be a dad. Also one of the most challenging, one of the most frustrating. In fact, I sometimes wonder if my job is not simply to be the one that walks around shutting off the lights. But then there's those moments, right? Those moments, whether it's getting to tuck our kiddos in, whether it's the early mornings, whether it's the things that no one knows that ever takes place, from wrapping gifts to cleaning out the garage to making sure the dog goes out. That being a dad is something so unique and so special. And I think one of the reasons for me it's so unbelievable is I have an opportunity, as I think about the idea that I'm a father, that I am a son as well, a son of the Holy Father. And that as my kids get to know me and they get to know my heart, I hope that they get a glimpse of his heart. And so dads, we're excited that you're here. We know that we're all growing in this together, that we're all striving and a lot of times falling down. But you matter, and you're important. And you're not just important because of what you bring home, you're important because of being at home. Your presence in the lives of your kiddos means more than you'll know. And so we're excited that you're here this morning. We're excited for a few other reasons as well, one of which, if you were able to tune into our family meeting this past Tuesday night, which we'd encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and check that out. But we are going to begin just a calculated and paced approach to regathering. But it's not just regathering for the sake of coming back to church, but an opportunity for us to actually gather together in celebration that we are the church. That God has continued to work in mighty and unbelievable ways, even as we were this past week talking and gathering information about how many people have come to know Jesus through this time. That over 43% of Americans say that right now their life is actually better because of this quarantine, that they've had to slow down and pace themselves, and maybe it's in the midst of that slowing down that we've actually been able to feel, see, and hear the presence of God. In the midst of a lot of disunity and dissatisfaction and frustration, that we've actually seen God bringing some communities together, bringing families back around the dinner table, bringing school back in to our kiddos' lives. And so with that, on July 12th, We're going to gather in this room, and for the first time in over 4 months, I'm going to preach to somebody other than Ken and Kevin. And so with that, I want to say a huge thank you to them. They have done an unbelievable job in adjusting and being flexible and helping to allow us to be able to continue to connect. Though we're separate, we're not alone. And so July 12th, mark it on your calendars. You're not allowed to go on vacation. You're not allowed to go camping. We're all going to be here together. For all the information with that about how that's going to take place, about the measures that we're doing in order to maintain our safety, if you'll go to our website, we have a document posted there that hopefully answers those questions. But if not, please reach out. Please contact us, whether via email, via Facebook, or a phone call. We would love to be able to serve you, to see you face to face on July 12th. So last week we launched into a brand new series that we have simply entitled Life. What is life? What is this thing that we're supposed to be doing? Because I don't know about you, but a lot of us have some really hard, difficult questions. Maybe you've even been asking those questions in this season of just kind of asking, what's the point? Like, why do we do what we do? And we even centered on 3 questions like, what is the purpose of my life? What are the things that I've been pursuing? When, where, and in what ways have I felt like life is just meaningless? Because if we're being honest, sometimes doesn't life feel like, maybe it does for me at least, feel like you're on a treadmill? You get up at the same time, that you eat one of 3 different breakfasts, that you kind of rush from that breakfast to get out the door to drive to a job, or maybe now it's not driving to a job, but you're rushing to the couch, that you go through the same emails, the same lists, making the same phone calls, you come home at the same time, you sit at the same spot on the couch, you watch the same TV shows, go to bed, and do it all over again. And so we find ourselves at some point along the line in life kind of going, is this it? Because there's got to be more than this. There's something that's compelling me to get out of bed. There's something that makes me want to just kind of believe that the next thing is around the corner. And so we opened the book of Ecclesiastes, and as we open that book of Ecclesiastes, we find the Bible is one of the most honest books ever written. In fact, this book is titled the truest of all books. Because it's a real man asking the same real difficult questions that we're asking. And here's what I think is important to know about that. And it's why I absolutely love the Bible and why the Bible is actually freeing. It's why Jesus says, I've come to tell you the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Is because our society seems to kind of project this image that everybody's got it all together, and we kind of all feel like we're the one that doesn't. Whether it's the social media platforms that we get on, and everybody's kids are achieving, and they're wearing the medals around their neck, and they've got the smile on their face, and they're just the big happy family that they're buying houses and getting married and getting pregnant and retiring and golfing and going on vacation. And here we are just in the grind, kind of going, shouldn't I have this figured out by now? Like, what am I missing? But here's what's funny is I've sat down and had enough coffees, and haven't lived all of my life. I've lived enough of my life to know this, is that most people think that everyone else has the answers. Well, friend, let me tell you this. Everybody's got questions. Everybody's asking the same questions, and everybody's seeking the same answers. Don't buy the lie that you're the only one. Because that's a lie from the enemy that seeks to separate and isolate us. You're not the only one. That's everyone. And so here's what's cool. Is as we open the book of Ecclesiastes, it's not a book that tells us how to live life. It digs much deeper into the why behind life. Why are we here? What's the point? It digs much deeper than what's around us to what's inside of us. And it sets a foundation that we see throughout the rest of the Bible. We see it in the woman at the well, that after meeting Jesus, after conversating with him, after encountering the living Christ, walks away and goes, come and see the man who told me everything I ever did. We see it in Nathanael, who's sitting underneath a tree, and when he encounters Jesus, Jesus says, I've seen you, and he confesses to him, you are the Messiah. We see it in David, who says that that God formed us in our mother's womb. We see it in Paul, who proclaims that God has had us in mind since it began. And this is what's amazing, is if we're going to go anywhere, why not go to the one that it says, in the beginning, God. Before there was anything, there was God. And so if we're going to ask these real, difficult, hard questions, I want my God to be big enough to answer those questions. And so the book of Ecclesiastes, we see a real man in the midst of real life, real circumstances, real problems, real searching, finding a real God. And so last week we dove into chapter 1, and it gave us this 30,000-foot overview of the book that simply said this: Solomon, who is the king of Jerusalem, who has been raised within the church, who's kept the rules, who's lived the life that we all think we're supposed to live, that is richer than any man that we have ever seen on the face of the earth. And I guess 2020 terms, he'd be called a baller. Like, he's got it all the money, all the houses, all the power. And his 30,000-foot overarching statement about life is when it comes to happiness, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to power, it's all madness, crazy, uses the word vanity, meaningless, 38 times. Man, I'm going to be honest with you, that's discouraging. So the point of all of this, the answer is it's all meaningless. Like, that's the conclusion that this whole thing comes to, is that it doesn't matter. That if this man who's got it all, if the athletes who have it all, if the actors and actresses, if the political leaders, if all these people that have it all, that all seem to be who we're all aspiring to be, if they are saying it's meaningless, if Solomon says it's meaningless, that's not just demoralizing, that's depressing. Until you peer just a little bit deeper and you find actual freedom. Because the actual question, the actual thing that Solomon's getting at when we ask, is this it? The answer is no. This isn't it. That however you define this, that the world, by its measures, metrics, its means, its things that it says, this is what defines your existence. These things that you accomplish, these houses that you build, these titles that you gain, this wealth that you accumulate, these kids that you raise, that all of that, if that's the point, yes, it's meaningless, but maybe there's something more. There's something more beyond the comparison and the competition. And it's Christ. That ultimately, where the world can't satisfy, he can. And so we walked away saying, if life is meaningless, then meaning must be found in something beyond this life. C.S. Lewis, we talked about this quote, said it this way. He said, I found a desire within myself that no experience in this world can satisfy. The most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. So what does that actually look like? And so what we're going to do is, as we move from chapter 1 to chapter 2, it's as if we go from 30,000 feet down to boots on the ground. That Solomon actually begins to walk through his life to explain to us how he's come to this conclusion. And so it says this in verse 1. It says, I, Solomon, said in my heart, come now. I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this was all vanity. And so he goes, here we go. Solomon says, I'm going to go find out what the point of life is. And you know where I'm going to start? You know what I'm going to do with my life? I'm pursuing pleasure. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And so the word here, literally, pleasure, like what is that? What does that actually mean? Because I think for a lot of us, especially when we speak church speak, it's like, well, pleasure means sitting the right way, acting the right way, and saying the right things. He says, No. The Hebrew word here literally means pleasure, joy, gladness, happiness. And so Solomon says, I'm going to find the point of life. I'm going to do whatever it is that makes me happy. Or in 2020, he might put it this way, I'm going to go live my truth. I'm going to put my wants out there, my feelings out there. I'm going to pursue everything that I've ever wanted, because at the end of the day, I'm the point, right? Because that's what every advertisement tells me, is that my happiness is the most important thing. That's what every magazine in the checkout line tells me. I'm the most important thing. And in fact, it turns out that I don't know where along the lines, but somebody didn't tell everybody else because they think they're the most important thing. And so he concludes, though, this pursuit of pleasure, it's meaningless. Well, maybe he just pursued the wrong things, right? Like maybe as we look at his life, because the natural progression is maybe what I'm doing right now, the reason why I'm not happy is I just haven't found it yet. And so it's the high school student that's sitting there thinking to myself, you know what? I'm just not popular enough yet, and I haven't achieved enough academically and athletically. And so what's coming next? Well, when I get to college, here's how it's going to be different. Here's how everything's going to fall into place. Here's going to have my best life now. And they get to the end of the college and they go, well, that really wasn't it. So I guess this college experience is over. So now it's in my career. Once I get that, and then I'm going to find fulfillment, because I'm going to be out of debt. I'm going to be out of this dorm. And I'm going to be living on my own like I've always wanted. Except shortly into that experience, you find, oh my goodness, traffic is terrible. Having a boss is terrible. And so I need something outside of work. And so it's a spouse and a house and kids. And we all just continue on until we get to this point where we go, well, retirement must be it. But we can only play so many rounds of golf and only pluck so many flowers before we go, is this it? And so Solomon says, verse 2, I said of laughter it is mad, and of pleasure what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. And so Solomon goes, listen, I am going to pursue happiness, but I'm not going to do it in these subtle ways. I'm laying it all on the line. I'm going to party like it's 1999. Like I'm going crazy. And so he says in the midst of this, I'm going to keep my mind about myself. Wisdom is never going to leave me. But at the end of the day, I've got more money. I've got more power. I've got more popularity. In fact, Solomon was so popular to the point that when he threw a party, it says in 2 Kings that at least 20,000 people showed up. I mean, that puts in perspective our graduation parties, right? Our tailgates, our game nights, like anybody's neighborhood block party, topping that. He's got 20,000 people showing up. So if popularity, if prestige, if reputation was the point, he's got it in spades. But it wasn't just that he had board games. It says, I searched with my heart with how to cheer my body with wine. So yeah, that type of party. The type of party that you brag about in college, but you deny when you have kids later on, right? And so he moves on and he says, you know what? Maybe this isn't the point. He's walking down the life that we all want to live. He's lived this college experience now. He's lived the party scene. He's been immature, and he goes, you know what? He wakes up one day and he goes, I need to make something of myself. I need to do something with my life. And so verse 4, I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted them with all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of the growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any had been before me in all of Jerusalem. It's time to start making something of my life. I want to move out of the basement. I want to accomplish something. And so Solomon builds his house, and this is what we know from biblical accounts, is that it took Solomon 14 years to build his house. Like Chip and JoJo got nothing on Solomon. It only took him 7 years to build the temple, which is one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. And so in that, I want you to imagine that house for a second. I want you to picture the size of the fireplace. I want you to picture the stone floors that are rolled out. I want you to picture that outdoor kitchen that every guy dreams about on Father's Day of going, man, what would it be like to throw that steak on there? I want you to, or steak, red hot dogs, whatever it is that you're cooking today, right? I want you to picture that craft room, that chef's kitchen, that soft plush carpet. I mean, this is the dream house. All he had to do was name it, and he could have it. And then he goes from there, and he goes, you know what? I've been cheering my body with wine. I'm tired of going to the store and buying it, so I'm just going to plant myself a vineyard. I'm going to roll out all of these trees, because at the end of the day, here's actually Solomon's trees that he planted. 900 acres. It's a national forest that you can go to Israel today and literally still see the holes that he dug out to water his garden. And so Solomon has got the mansion on Sheridan Road that we all want. He's living in the lap of luxury. He's got his name on the outside of buildings. He's got a garage full of toys and boats and riding lawnmowers. Closet full of shoes, walls full of plaques. But when it's all done, when he's done with this party scene, when he's done with accomplishing something with his life, it's still not enough. It's still Hebel, meaningless. And so if the party wasn't the point, popularity wasn't the point, prestige and accomplishment isn't the point, maybe family's the point. And see, this is where I think for some of us, especially in Christianity, we buy into a lie that we're not complete unless we're married. We're not complete unless we have kids, except what we find is that there's no external circumstances, no experience here on earth that ever can complete us, that completeness is only found in Christ. If you are single or you are without children or you've been unable to conceive at this point, let me tell you this, friend, it's not that you're lacking. Because we lack nothing within Christ. And in fact, even in that pain and that hardship and that difficulty and that longing, God uses that to draw us to Him. And so, he decides, you know what? This all is at the point. In fact, it's empty and it's meaningless without somebody to experience with. And so he has that moment. You can almost picture him on his back deck looking out at this unbelievable forest, looking out at this huge vineyard and thinking to himself, man, what would it be like to be watching little grandkids run around down here? What would it be like to have a barbecue with my whole family? That's what I'm missing. And so check this out. He says again, verse 7, I bought male and female slaves. I had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines. You know what? I've got people to do everything for me. I've got the maid and the gardener and the butler, and I've got servants, and I've literally got people who feed me. He literally had people who stood in his courtyard and drank the cup and ate the food before it came to him to make sure two things. One, it wasn't poisoned. Two, that it was to his liking. He says, my 401k is huge. I've got so much silver and gold in abundance that it's like nothing. The stock market's growing. My house is the biggest in the neighborhood. The economy's stimulated again. And in fact, I don't even have a Spotify account because at the end of the day, I got tired of it. And so instead, I hired bands to come in and play for me. And then I took many concubines. Biblical scholars estimate that he had somewhere between 700 wives and 300 concubines. I live with 3 ladies, a wife, 2 daughters, and 2 female dogs. I'm going to be super honest with you. My house has enough drama. Pray for Solomon. And then says this, verse 9. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. I'm at the top of the food chain. I stand at the peak of the mountain. I have climbed the ladder to the top. I'm above Bill Gates. I'm above Steve Jobs. I'm above Mark Cuban. I'm above the president. You name them, I'm above them. I stand at the top. There's no one who's my peer. You know, on Father's Day, I'm not foolish to believe that there aren't some of us in here that at the end of the day, our bravado tells us, if I can just get there, if I can just beat every other guy in here. Because here's what happens when you walk into a room or when you look around, is oftentimes girls are walking in and they may be comparing beauty, or they may be comparing how their kids behave. Men are sizing one another up. It starts when we're in elementary school, going, who's the biggest, who's the baddest, who's the toughest, who's got the most. And Solomon says, no one has ever had what I have. This is the moment we all want. And not only that, he says this, also my wisdom, who we know is the greatest of all time, my wisdom remained with me. I never lost sight of what I was trying to do. There wasn't this moment where he woke up and he went, what am I doing with my life? The entire time he has his wits about him. He knows exactly what he's doing. Verse 10. And whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was the reward for all my toil. See, here, if you've grown up in church or you have a church background, here's what happens is we look at the life of Solomon and we go, of course, guy's a drunk. Of course, he had 1,000 wives, and so why wouldn't he say that life is meaningless? Of course, he's trying to pursue all these vain things. It's all his problem. In fact, pleasure is the problem. Because we're not supposed to pursue pleasure. We're not supposed to pursue happiness. That's where the sin is. And so instead, Christianity becomes this list of things that we don't do. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't laugh, don't have fun, don't go to parties, don't interact with those people. And so God becomes the overseer of the don'ts. He's the principal in the hallway, screaming at you all the time, don't run. But here's the truth. Pleasure isn't the issue. It's not that Solomon was pursuing the wrong things. It was maybe perhaps he was pursuing them in the wrong way. See, because I understand Christianity's intent. I understand if you're one of those people that goes, don't. I think your heart's in the right place. You desire to protect. But in protecting, we neglect a vital truth. See, we come to believe that what's outside of us is so much more dangerous than what's inside of us. But Jesus would tell his followers in the Gospel of Matthew, in Matthew 15, he would tell his followers it's not what's outside, but what's inside that defiles us. The problem isn't out here. The problem's in here. And so the problem isn't pleasure, because you know what's unbelievable? God created pleasure. God's the one who thought it up. God's the one who put that desire inside of you. God's the one that put Adam and Eve in the garden and said, look out, all this stuff that I said, it is good, it's yours. Go have it. That taste of food in your mouth, God created those taste buds. The sound of a baby laughing was in the ears of God. The feeling of excitement, the way that your hair stands up on the back of your neck, all of that was created by our God who knit together every single molecule in your body. James puts it this way, the half-brother of Jesus. He tells us not to be deceived, that every good and perfect gift from above comes down from the Father of lights. Pleasure is a good thing. Laughter, playing, leisure, wine within reason, rest is a good thing. Fellowship, celebration, fireworks are good things. Achievements, promotions, wealth, retirement are good things. Taking a walk on the beach is a good thing. Marriage and children are good things. problem is when we take a good thing, we make it the ultimate thing, it becomes an empty thing. When you take a good thing and you make it the ultimate thing, it becomes an empty thing. That's the definition of what the Bible calls idolatry. And John Calvin said that the human heart is an idol factory. We take that which was meant to lead us to worship God in fullness and truth, and instead we exchange it for a vain and temporal, fleeting feeling. Romans 1 puts it really clear. They exchanged the Creator for the creation. Ravi Zacharias says this. He says the loneliest moment in all of life, which Ravi lived life and just recently passed away, that the loneliest moment in life is when you just experience that which you thought would deliver the ultimate, and it lets you down. It's the athlete that says that the championship turns out it actually wasn't enough. It's the CEO that says all of the money and finally going public with my IPO, it isn't enough. It's the parent who feels this overwhelming guilt as they look at their kids and while simultaneously happy, go, this isn't enough. And so when we make it about the experience, here's the lie that happens, is the more we pursue the experience, the less satisfying it becomes. It's the law of diminishing returns. C.S. Lewis wrote an unbelievable, really short story. It's an exchange of letters between two demons, Screwtape and Wormwood. And in it, Screwtape is discipling Wormwood, which is ironic in and of itself, and he's discipling how to lead the children of God away from what he calls the enemy, which is actually God. And he says this is long, but listen. He says, Wormwood, never forget that when we're dealing with any pleasure in its healthy and normal and satisfying form, we are, in a sense, on the enemy's, God's, ground. I know we have won many a soul through pleasure. All the same, it is his invention, not ours. He made the pleasures. All our research so far has not enabled us to produce one. All we can do is encourage humans to take the pleasures which our enemy has produced at times or in ways or in degrees which he has forbidden. Hence, we're always to try to work away from the natural condition of any pleasure to that which it is least natural, least redolent to its maker, and least pleasurable. An ever-increasing craving for an ever-diminishing pleasure is the formula. Matt Chandler says this, almost all of us, whether we admit it or not, have bought into the philosophy that what we need to finally make us happy is more of what we already possess. And it's madness. See, what we find is that pleasure in its true, natural form, the way God intended, is best found, is most deep and rich in the presence and praise of God who created it. That's why Jesus said, and we learn in him, that the deeper you press, actually the more you find. He's the only thing that keeps satisfying. That's why it says in Ephesians 2:7, the immeasurable riches of his grace. It's why it says in 2 Peter 2:3-18, it says that we want to grow in the grace and knowledge of God. It's why in Colossians 1:10 that Paul prays that they may ever increase in their knowledge of God. It's why it says in 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter says this, for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then to come more and more face to face. Now we know in part, but we shall know in full. Do you know that, friend, that every glimpse, every laughter, every moment that at the end of the day you go, is this it? The answer's no, there's more to come. It only gets better. That the more we come to find Jesus, the more we come to discover his plan, his grace, his love, the more that we come to know him, the more I want. Because it's the only thing that satisfies. It's the only thing that keeps getting richer and deeper and more full. And here's what's funny, is it doesn't take away my pleasure in other things. It actually fulfills it. It actually puts it in its proper perspective. It actually makes it to where I can see those things and not be controlled by those things, but rather enjoy them. And so, sunrises and sunsets don't become moments. They become reflections and reminders of God's faithfulness and that His mercy is new every morning. Friendships become communities. Jobs become places that I can worship through work and gifting that God's given me. Church becomes more than just a service I attend. It becomes a chance to gather with others in celebration, because you know what church actually is? It's not a building. It's not gathering together to hear teaching. It's not coffee shops, and it's not high fives, and it's not smiles and waves, and it's not the way that we kind of put ourselves together, dress in the right way, and make sure that our seat is taken care of. Church is actually a picture of what is to come, of this ultimate celebration. That's why we're going to gather on July 12th, is the ultimate celebration. Because you know what's the biggest party recorded in the Bible? It's this one to come in heaven. But you know the glimpse of it that Jesus gives? It's in Luke 15. This prodigal son who comes to his father and says, "Father, I want my inheritance," and leaves him. And do you know what the subtle truth of there is? Is that prodigal son isn't just saying, "I want your money." He's saying, "I don't want you. God, I don't want you. I don't want to follow you. I don't want to be a part of this. And not only do I not want you, I don't want anything that you have to offer. I'm leaving this land. I'm leaving these people. I'm leaving these servants, and I'm going to go find mine." And he pursues all of these pleasures. It says that he engages with prostitutes. It says that he goes and drinks and does whatever he wants. And one day he wakes up in a pigsty, eating out of a trough. And he thinks to himself, "What in the world am I doing? Servants in my Father's house have it better than this." And so he comes up with this speech and this way that he's going to return to God. And as he's walking up to tell the speech, as he's ready to think to himself, "How am I going to get that look off my Father's face? How am I going to make sure he doesn't wag his finger at me? How am I going to make sure he doesn't look at me and say, 'I told you so'? How do I make sure he doesn't even act like he doesn't know me because I said he was dead to me?" That's how I view God. It's at those moments when I realize what I've pursued isn't going to satisfy that I think to myself, okay, how can I make a deal with God? How can I come back and say, "If you'll just let me be your servant, I'll volunteer, I'll write a check, I'll do what I need to do. Here's the deal I'm willing to make with you, God. And I understand you're going to say, 'I told you so.' And I understand you're going to be vindictive. I understand you probably want to punish me. And I understand that maybe you just will tolerate me. And at the end of the day, here's what happens, is God, the Father, runs off his porch to the Son. He wraps him in his own clothes and he yells, 'Bring out the golden calf that we've all been raising up, that we've all been wanting, this fat, huge calf, and we're going to sacrifice it today. And we're throwing the biggest party ever because my son has come home.'" God throws the biggest party. God's the one that says, we're going to celebrate. That's the offer today, friend, that if you have pursued all these things in all the wrong ways, it doesn't matter, because God is waiting to run off the porch, to wrap you in his clothes, to embrace you with a hug, to put his ring on your finger, and to say, "Kill the cow, let's throw a party, my son has come home." So let me ask you some questions. One, where have you taken a good thing and made it your God thing? Maybe it just starts with a simple prayer like David prays in Psalm 139, where he says, "Search me, O God." That's a scary prayer. But it's a prayer that says, "God, I'm coming out of hiding." Two, where do your eyes need to be opened to the wonder, beauty, and glory of God? That yearning that you have is only satisfied in what the Psalms say, "Come and taste and see that the Lord is good." Not the God that you think, not the God that you've imagined, not the God that you've thought up, but the true, genuine God, that you leave all of those pretenses at the side and say, "God, I want to know you." Three, how can you practically, today, presently, press into Jesus? A few suggestions. One, we pride ourselves here on being a diverse, authentic body of believers. Here's the deal. If we believe and we do that Jesus knows you like no one else, that he knit you together in your mother's womb, that he has seen you under the tree, that you've asked him to search you and know you, there's nothing hidden. In fact, it tells us in Hebrews 4 that we're all naked before the Lord. Every blemish exposed. And so, why hide? You know what my honest prayer is for First 3? What I mean by authentic body of believers is that we're not hiding, we're not projecting, we're not acting like we've got it all together. But instead, we are open and authentic, and we form gospel-centered, God-glorifying relationships that have gospel conversations, that say it's okay not to be okay, it's just not okay to stay that way. So maybe that means joining a life group, maybe that means being part of an after party, maybe that means reaching out just for some counseling and some mentorship, whatever it means. We're here, and you're welcome. Real people in pursuit of a real God. Also, maybe it means you pick up some books. We can recommend those to you, but ultimately what it means is that we want to dwell in the Scripture, not because we have to, but because we get to. That we, like David, would constantly be drawn to what he calls, what he says, I trust in your word, I hope. What in Psalm 119 describes this way, that I meditate. I don't just read your Scriptures, I meditate. Believe what you read. That I meditate on them day and night. In fact, I want to read this to you. Psalm 119, verse 15 says this. It says, I will meditate on your precepts, and I will fix my eyes on your ways. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like my 4-year-old. I walk into a store and my eyes just kind of dart around, and all of life is all these voices and all this chaos and can be all this swirl. But Jesus says to me, come, and I'll rest you. That's actual the translation a friend pointed out to me this week. Not just I'll give you rest, I will rest you. That all this commotion, all this clamoring, all this noise, that in me there's calm. That in me you'll be planted like a tree next to a river, deep roots. That's what I want to be. And this is what I know. Is God is able to do what he says he's going to do. And so, friend, pursue pleasure, but don't pursue it in the wrong way. Pursue it as a glimpse of the ultimate treasure we have in Christ. God, we thank you. We thank you, God, Father, that you are not a principal screaming, don't, no, stop, but that you're a good Father. And on Father's Day, God, we are reminded of your goodness, that you sit waiting in anticipation, hoping, knowing, believing, sacrificing, pursuing us. And Father, that you don't just pursue us when we're at our best, when we've accomplished, when we come to you with the perfect speech at the perfect time in the perfect way, but that when we're at our worst, when we are sitting with our heads in a trough, when we have made the least of ourselves, God, when we come to the end of who we are, we finally find who you are. And so, God, I pray today and confess and ask for forgiveness for the ways that I have pursued all of your things in the wrong way. Father, I thank you that you are good, gracious, steadfast, holy, and loving. And Father, that because of your Son Jesus, you've made a way for me to know you, And so, God, save me from this vain life. Save me from this meaningless pursuit. And instead, God, I pray that your Spirit might dwell within me, that I might be filled with your word, your love, your power, and your grace. Because, God, I know that you are able and I am sent. It's in your Son, Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Happy Father's Day.